speaker come from India. The title of the talk is Liquid Metal-Based Tunable Plasmonic Hybridized Nanostructure. Welcome, speaker.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm from India, and thank you for being here till the last talk. I'll be talking about the tunable plasmon hybridized nanostructures based on liquid metal. Particularly, when I say tunability, it means mechanical tunability. Why do we need tunability? Is because it allows conformal integration onto curvilinear surfaces. And this is particularly important if you want to seamlessly integrate these devices onto substructures, tissues, and muscles. Furthermore, mechanical configurability allows deformable optical interconnects and photonic packaging. It also will allow for photonic tuning, strength sensing, chemical and biological sensing, as it's responsive to stimuli like mechanical strength, temperature, and environmental and the chemical environment. So, like plasmons, as we know that it's a collective oscillation of the electrons, but when we limit the oscillation of these electrons to a very small spatial scale by using a metallic nanostructure, we have this localized surface plasmon resonances. And these are the electron oscillations on the surface of this nanoparticle. And because electrons, it's a charged particle, it will give out radiation, and that radiation can be coupled to the surface plasmons of a neighboring particle, which will give rise to an interacting localized surface plasmon resonance. As we are working, like our main target is to make structures with deformability, we want to employ liquid metal in those structures. So the available liquid metals in the periodic table are the rubidium, cesium, francium, mercury, and gallium. But these are the first group 1 elements, and group 1 elements, as you know, these are very highly reactive, and francium is even radioactive. Mercury, it is not only toxic, it is also carcinogen. We have, like, we're left with gallium, and fortunately, gallium is biocompatible. Along with gallium, its alloys are also they are liquid well below the room temperature, and they can be used in biocompatible applications as well. So, how do we fabricate our structure? So it's a simple step. So we take a substrate, and the substrate, because we are interested in mechanically deformable material, we use a polymer. In fact, it is an elastomer which is called PDMS, which is polydimethyl siloxane. And the way it is made is we take a particular fraction of the PDMS base and mix it with a cross-linking agent. And the fraction of that cross-linking agent determines what is the extent of cross-linking in that material. So even after cross-linking, there will be some of the oligomers which will not be cross-linked, and that will, so these are the blue ones, so these are like not cross-linked. If the fraction of cross-linking agent is less, then there will be more of these oligomers, the not cross-linked, the monomers. So more is the cross-linking, more will be the Young's modulus of the material. So when I say PDMS 5, we take 5 parts of the base and 1 part of the cross-linking agent, and that's how we make this PDMS 5 as the highest stress to strain slope. And so this is the highest Young's modulus material. What we have is, we have made different material with different Young's modulus as well as this oligomer concentration. So we take this, also all of these are like optically transparent. We take this and then deposit gallium onto this. So on deposition, what will happen is, we'll see initially all of them will be transparent, and then we'll get different colors based on different oligomer concentration. So what we have is, these are the real the images of the real samples. We see different colors here based on what is the oligomer content, and this span a wide gamut of the CI color coding. Furthermore, what we have is like a technique to remove these oligomers, and then if you go for a thermal evaporation, what we observe is that these colors are gone. What we have is just a bluish white color. So what we conclude from this slide is that these oligomers are the reason why we are getting this different coloration. So let us look what is happening in terms of the nanostructure, because the only material that we are employing is only the gallium and the PDMS substrate. So when we have oligomers, this is the top view of the samples of gallium deposited onto different material. Here, this is what is the sample that I am using for my research. Like this is PDMS 5, and this is when if we remove the oligomer out of the substrate. And here, as you can see, that this size distribution is similar to that gallium deposited on glass and silicon, which are like hard substrates. From the cross-section view, what we observe is that these gallium droplets are embedded into the substrate. Not only that, we have a very drastic size distribution based on this PDMS ratio, which means that there is different PDMS or the oligomer content. So based on oligomer content, we see this different distribution. But here, as we remove the oligomers, the size distribution becomes almost same and the color becomes very blank. Now, the takeaway message from this slide is that it is the presence of oligomers that causes gallium to engulf into the substrate, and like there are different other properties, which is the result because there is oligomers in the PDMS. So from here, what we understand is that the structure is gallium droplets. They are spatially static to each other, and they are embedded in a matrix of PDMS. PDMS is a material with refractive index of 1.4. Now, because PDMS is an elastomer, we can stretch it. So as we stretch it, the nanostructure changes, and because of that change, what we see here is that this change of color from pink to green. And we can see this happens because of the blue shift of the reflectivity spectra, and the sensitivity is like 3.68 nanometer per millimeter of strain. This is the curve on the color coordinates, how the color will change. And this is quite reversible process. As you can see here, up to 1000 cycles we have applied, and what we are measuring here is the peak of this reflectivity spectra, and it is very repeatable in nature. So I just want to show you the actual video how it works. So this is when the sample is not strained, and as we are trying to pull it apart, we see that there is a change of color because the nanostructures is changing. And when we relax back, we again see that it will again come back to its original color, which is like somewhat like pink. So this is another sample, yet another sample with a different color, and here we see that this is quite like the change of color is from blue to yellow. So let us try to understand. So the question is like, why is this happening? So gallium is known to be a UV plasmonic material with a plasma frequency of 13.7 electron volt, but we want a response in the visible region. So what is the way to do that? So one thing is that we need to have gallium. We need to have the nanoparticles of gallium, and from that what we obtain from the Crowley condition is that a single particle gallium nanodroplet in the dipole limit, it will have a plasmonic response around 8.9 electron volt. Then what we can do to lower the response is to encapsulate that in a medium of higher refractive index, which is like let's say PDMS. So from with that also what we do, we can only come back to 7 electron volt. Furthermore, what is essential, what we need to do to lower this response down to the visible region is we need plasmon hybridization. So plasmon hybridization, still if it is an air medium, we will not reach the visible region. Visible region, the UV region starts from the 3.1 electron volts. But now if we try to encapsulate that the medium is a high refractive index material, then what we can have is a response in the visible region. So this is what we have achieved with our structure, and the essential criteria is that the size distribution has to be small and homodispersed, and they have to be encapsulated in the PDMS medium. And if there is a decrease of the refractive index, we'll see a blue shift, or if the hybridization changes, we'll see a shift towards the higher energy. So that is what we can do. Now what we do is like we see the top view image and do a size distribution analysis and look at what is the mode of this. So most of the particles are 30 nanometer radius droplets, and if we look at a single particle plasmonic response, by that what I mean is that we have to look at the peak of quantum absorption, the absorption scattering spectra. So the lowermost mode, which is the dipole mode, it is at 3.8 electron volt, which is in the UV region, and the next higher mode, which is again in the UV region, is 5.7 electron volt. What would happen now if we have another particle which is near to each other? So here, what I am showing here is the surface where it represents the charge distribution, and the arrows it represents the electric field on the surface of the particle. So in case of the dimer, we can have two type of configurations. One in which, so these are the single particle modes which I showed in the last slide. We can excite it by a light with polarization which is parallel to the gap. In this case, we can have two types of charge configurations. One in which the light charges are unlike charges are nearer to each other, especially near to each other, and other in which the like charges are especially near to each other. In this case, the overall energy will lower because of the Coulombic interaction, and that is why we call this as a bonding mode, and this is the anti-bonding mode. We can have another type of configuration in which the electric field is perpendicular to the gap, and in that case, these are the type of the charge oscillations that can happen. And here, as the unlike charges are especially nearer to each other, it will have a lower energy contribution. Hence, it is a bonding mode, and this is an anti-bonding mode. But in our setup, we use an unpolarized light, and we'll have both of this type of, like there will be components of electric field, both perpendicular and parallel to the field. And what we have is, we'll have only those modes excited which have a non-zero dipole moment. And those modes are called the bright modes because they can couple with the light. So these two modes will couple, and this is what I am showing. This is the bright bonding mode, and this is the bright anti-bonding mode. So there are ways to excite the dark modes as well, but they can be excited with special type of beams like some vector beams or radial beams. So what is happening is, so when I am stretching the sample, this gallium nanodroplets, the gap is increasing, and that results in this increase of the shift of the response towards the blue region, which is the cause of this color change. So what happens, like in terms of quantitative, if you see that this peak which was in the UV region, it lowers down to the visible region now because of this interaction, which is called basically the hydration. And this mode it started splitting. So this is the effect of the plasmon hybridization. Now what we can do is we can change. What we can do is we can now change the interdroplet gap and then look how this mode it evolves with respect to the gap. And what we see here is that so here we are looking at the bonding mode and the anti-bonding mode, and we are plotting how these peaks are evolving with respect to the gap. And what is happening is only the bonding, bright bonding mode, it comes into the UV region, which is like 1.9 to the 3.1 electron volt. And what we see in UV visible spectroscopy is just this particular field. And there are techniques by which we can explore all this, the extra modes such as electron energy loss spectroscopy and so on. But we're mostly interested in this, and this was for the diamond. But what we have in our system is a multi-particle assembly, and we can do that. Now from this we got the information that to simulate that the droplets are increasing, what we have to do is increase the interdroplet gap along the direction, and then from FTPD simulation this confirms that it also shows a blue shift. Yeah. So that is the that it is the plasmon hybridization which is changing in our sample, which gives rise to the color change. So what we have shown is a process technology to get these different structural colors, and which can be used in applications where we want to see a visual change of color. For example, if you want to have a soft robotic sensor and if you want to see how the body position is changing and so on. And the reason of this color change is the blue shift in the visible region, and that happens because of the changing hybridization of the modes. So that is all. I'd like to thank the funding agencies and the research facilities. Thank you so much. I'd like to thank for your patience and listening.
Open for questions. Any comment?
Thank you for the nice talk. Gallium is usually like really susceptible to oxidation. When you do the evaporation, is it under vacuum? And then does it form a native oxide, and then is it air stable?
Yeah, so gallium, it is susceptible to oxidation. So the material that we use, it is permeable to air, the substrate. So even if we do the thermal evaporation under vacuum conditions, at the end we have to take it out for the application side. All these experiments, optical experiments are done in air. PDMS, it is known to be air permeable. That is why oxygen from the atmosphere, it can diffuse and it will form a native oxide. So native oxide is there, but even if you do all these simulations in the presence of the native oxide, it will still show the blue shift, and I mean that's what we saw in the experimental sample as well.
Thank you very much for the great talk. So I'm still wondering why the oligomer is needed for nanoparticle formation. Oligomer, load on oligomer.
Yeah.
What is the load?
Yeah. So the role is that what we see here, it is the oligomers which determine we determine the mechanism of how these particles are formed. So what happens? So there is the capillary interaction. I'll just come to that slide.
Yeah, but so why the oligomer can choose the diameter of the nanoparticle?
Why the oligomers can choose?
Can choose or determine the diameter.
Yeah. So it is the concentration. So what is happening here? We are using a liquid metal. So when a droplet starts forming on the substrate, the oligomers, we can think of it as a liquid in a cross-link matrix. So what happens is, it is like when the droplet forms, capillary interactions come in and they will engulf it. And yeah.
Capsule material. It's a coating material, like
Caption?
capsule. It's a yes.
Cathode. Cathode. Anode and cathode. Yeah, it's not.
It's a mold property of oligomer plays a mold or capping material of the nanoparticle, right? Okay,
No.
maybe we can have a discussion later.
Yeah. So, like, I would like to, like, the formation of these nanoparticles, it has been in this paper. I mean, this paper is all about how this nanodroplets form. So, what is happening is, it is the amount of this oligomer concentration, and it is the fluid-fluid interaction of the liquid metal and the oligomer cement that gives rise to this. Different structures.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for the talk. If you, in that bottom image there, if you heat the PDMS for a long time,
Yeah.
do you see the small nanoparticles kind of oswald growth?
No, that will not happen. It is really quite stable till 200 degrees Celsius. We have done that experiment. There is one interesting phenomena occurs because of this property. So when we heat the sample, and we heat till up to 200 degrees Celsius, the PDMS refractive index, it changes by a very small number. Like the PDMS refractive index, it decreases. So when the refractive index decreases, we'll see an optical shift towards the blue region. So when we heat the sample, the PDMS with the gallium in it, we'll see a spectral response. We'll see a spectral tunability. So that result I have not presented here, but it can be used as a temperature sensor, and the change is around like 50 nanometer of shift as we heat the sample.
When you're doing the heating, have you done the heating in a vacuum before it is allowed to grow the oxide?
Like if we heat the sample in the vacuum?
Yeah, with the PDMS. So do you think the oxide is preventing the gallium from migrating further?
Yeah, so that is one of the reasons. So oxide is playing a very crucial role in the stability, and also gallium has a very high surface tension that actually protects its spherical shape, and it doesn't allow like the neighboring gallium droplets to merge or they would fly away. So it's like you can think of it as something. Oxide layer can be thought of as a hard shell that protects the liquid gallium inside. Thank you so much.
Right. And no question, and let's send the speaker.
Okay, so